Volume 5, number 612, The Morning of the Resurrection. The women resume working at the ointments, which during the night, in the cool of the courtyard, have become a thick pomade. John and Peter think that they ought to tidy up the supper room, cleaning the tableware, but putting everything back, as if the supper were just over. "He told us," says John. "He had also said, 'Do not fall asleep.' He had said, 'Do not be proud, Peter. Do you not know that the hour of the trial is about to come?' And he said, 'You will deny me.'" Peter weeps again, while with deep grief he says, "And I did deny him." "Enough, Peter. Now you have collected yourself. Enough of this torture." "No, never enough. If I should become as old as the ancient patriarchs, if I should live the 700 or the 900 years of Adam and of his first grandchildren, I would never cease having this torture." "Do you not hope in his mercy?" "Yes, I do. If I did not believe in that, I should be like the Iscariot, a desperate man. But even if he forgives me from the bosom of his Father where he has gone back, I will not forgive myself. I who said, 'I do not know him.' Because at that moment it was dangerous to know him. Because I was ashamed of being his disciple. Oh, because I was afraid of being tortured. He was going towards his death, and I thought of saving my life. And to save it, I rejected him like a woman in sin who, after giving birth to a child, rejects the fruit of her womb, which is dangerous to keep before her unaware husband comes back. I'm worse than an adulteress. Worse than..." Mary Magdalene, attracted by their shouts, comes in. "Do not shout like that. Mary can hear you. She is so exhausted. She has no strength left, and everything hurts her. Your useless, unseemly shouts renew her torture of what you have been. See, John? A woman can order me to be quiet. And she is right. Because we, the males sacred to the Lord, have only been able to lie or to run away. The women have been brave. You, a little more than a woman, so young and pure you are, were able to remain. We, the strong ones, the males, have fled. Oh, how the world must despise me. Tell me, woman. You were right. Put your foot on my lips that lied. On the sole of your sandal there is perhaps a little of his blood. And only that blood mixed with the mud of the road can give the denier a little forgiveness, a little peace. I must get accustomed to the scorn of the world. What am I? Tell me, what am I?" "You are full of pride," replies calmly the Magdalene. "Sorrow also. But you must believe that out of 10 parts of your sorrow, 5, I do not want to offend you by saying 6, 5 are of your sorrow of being one who can be despised. And I will really scorn you if you continue only to moan and get into a frenzy, just like a foolish woman. What is done is done, and no unseemly shouting can repair it or cancel it. It only serves to draw attention and beg for undeserved pity. Be manly in your repentance. Do not shout. Act. know who I was. But when I realized that I was more despicable than vomit, I did not fall into fits of convulsions. I acted in public, without being indulgent towards myself and without asking for indulgence. Did the world despise me? It was right. I had deserved it. The world said, "A new whim of the prostitute," and it called blasphemy my recourse to Jesus. It was right. The world remembered my previous behavior that justified such remarks. So, the world had to convince itself that the sinner Mary no longer existed. By means of facts, I convinced the world. Do the same and be quiet. "You are severe, Mary," objects John. "More with myself than with other people, but I admit it. I do not have the light hand of the mother. She is love. I lashed my feelings with a whip of my will, and I will do so even more. Do you think that I have forgiven myself for being lustful? No, I have not. But I only say so to myself, and I will always repeat it to myself. I shall die consumed with this secret regret of having been my own corrupter, with this inconsolable sorrow of having profaned myself and not having been able to give him but a trampled-on heart. See, I have worked more than all the others at the bombs, and with greater courage than the others I will uncover him. Oh, God, what will he be like now?" Mary of Magdala grows pale at the very thought of it. "And I will cover him with fresh balms, removing those which are certainly all tainted on his countless wounds. I will do so because the other women will look like convolvuli after a downpour. But it grieves me to have to do it with these hands of mine, accustomed to caressing lustfully, and to have to approach his holiness with this stained body of mine. I should like to have the hand of the Virgin Mother to accomplish this last unction." Mary is now weeping silently, without sobbing. How different she is from the theatrical Mary always shown to us. She is weeping noiselessly as she did on that day of her forgiveness in the house of the Pharisee. "Are you saying that the women will be afraid?" Peter asks. "Not afraid, but they will be upset seeing his body, which is certainly already rotten, swollen, black. And then, and this is certain, they will be afraid of the guards." "Do you want me to come with John?" "Certainly not. We women are all going, because as we were all up there, so it is fair that we should all be around his deathbed. You and John will remain here. She cannot remain alone." "Is she not coming?" "We are not letting her come. She is convinced that he will rise from the dead. What do you think?" "I, after Mary, am the one who believes more. I have always believed that that could be. He said so, and he never lies. Never. Oh, before I used to call him Jesus, Master, Savior, Lord. Now I feel that he is so great that I do not know. I dare not give him a name anymore. What shall I say to him when I see him?" "But do you really think that he will rise?" "Another one. Oh, by dint of telling you that I do believe, and of hearing you say that you do not believe, I will end up by not believing anymore myself. I have believed, and I do believe. I have believed, and a long time ago, I prepared a garment for him. And tomorrow, as tomorrow is the third day, I will bring it here to have it ready. But if you say that he will be black, swollen, filthy, never. Sin is filthy. But, of course, he will be black. So, was Lazarus not already putrid? And yet he rose, and his body was healed. But if I say so, be quiet, you misbelievers. My human reason says also to me, he is dead and will not rise. But my spirit, his spirit, because I have received a new spirit from him, shouts resounding like blares of silver trumpets. He will rise. He will rise. He will rise. Why do you hurl me like a little boat against the cliffs of your doubts? I believe, my Lord. Although torn by grief, Lazarus has obeyed the Master and has remained in Bethany. I, who know who Lazarus of Theophilus is, a strong man, not a fearful leveret, can appreciate the sacrifice he made by remaining in the shade and not near the Master. But he obeyed, and by such obedience he has been more heroical than if with weapons he had snatched him from armed men. I have believed, and I believe, and I am staying here, waiting like her. But let me go. It is daybreak. As soon as there is enough light, we will go to the sepulchre. And the Magdalene goes away, her face flushed with weeping, but always brave. She goes back into Mary's room. What was the matter with Peter? A nervous fit, but he has got over it. Do not be severe, Mary. He suffers. So do I. But you know that not even once have I asked a pitying caress of you. He has already been cured by you. On the contrary, I think that you alone, Mother, are in need of a balsam. My holy, beloved Mother. But take heart. Tomorrow is the third day. We shall lock ourselves in here, the two of us, his lovers. You, the holy lover, I, the poor lover. But I love him as much as I can with my whole self, and we will wait for him. The rest, those who do not believe, we will lock them in over there with their doubts. And I will put many roses here. I will have the chest brought here today. I will go to the mansion house and I will instruct Levi. All these horrible things must disappear. Our resurrected Lord must not see them. So many roses. And you will put on a new dress. He must not see you so. I will comb your hair. I will wash your poor face disfigured by tears. Eternal Maid, I will act as your mother. I shall have, at last, the joy of taking motherly care of a child more innocent than a newborn baby. Dear. And with her emotional exuberance, the Magdalene presses to her breast the head of Mary, who is sitting. She kisses and caresses her. She tidies the light locks of her hair ruffled behind her ears. With her linen dress, she wipes the fresh tears that stream down her cheeks again, always. The women come in with lights and amphorae and large-mouthed vases. Mary of Alphaeus is carrying a heavy mortar. It is not possible to stay outside. There is a weak wind that blows out the lamps," she explains. They place themselves on one side. They lay all their things on a long, narrow table. Then they give the final touch to their balms by mixing the already heavy pomade of essences in the mortar with a white powder, handfuls of which they take from a little sack. They mix working with all their energy, and then they fill a large-mouthed vase. They place it on the floor. They repeat the same operation with another vase. Perfumes and tears fall on the resins. Mary Magdalene says, "This is not the unction that I hoped I should be able to prepare for you." Because it is the Magdalene who, being more skilled than the other women, has controlled and directed the composition of the perfume, which is so strong that they decide to open the door and leave the window ajar over the garden, which is just beginning to appear in the early light of dawn. They all weep more loudly after the remark made by the Magdalene in a subdued voice. They have finished. All the vases are full. They go out with the empty amphorae, the mortar no longer useful, and many lamps. 2 alone are left in the little room, and they tremble. They seem to be sobbing as well, with the flickering of their light. The women come back again, and they close the window because it is a rather cold dawn. They put on their mantles, and they take large sacks into which they put the vases of the balm. Mary stands up and looks for her mantle, but they all crowd round her, convincing her not to come. "You are not fit to stand, Mary. You have not had any food for 2 days, only a little water." "Yes, Mother, we will do it quickly and well, and we shall soon be back." "Be not afraid. We will embalm him like a king. Look what precious balm we have prepared, and how much of it. We will not neglect any part of the body or any wound, and we will arrange him properly with our hands. We are strong, and we are mothers. We will place him like a child in a cradle, and the others will only have to close the place." But Mary insists. "It is my duty," she says. "I have always taken care of him. Only these last 3 years that he was in the world, I surrendered the care of him to other people. When he was far away from me, now that the world has rejected and disowned him, he is mine again, and I am once again his servant." Peter, who had approached the door with John without being seen by the women, runs away upon hearing these words. He runs to some secluded corner to bewail his sin. John remains near the door, but he does not say anything. He would like to go as well, but he makes the sacrifice of remaining with the mother. Mary Magdalene takes Mary back to her seat. She kneels in front of her. She embraces her knees, raising her sorrowful, loving face towards her, and she promises, "With his spirit, he knows and sees everything. But with my kisses, I will tell his body your love and your wish. I know what is love. I know what spur, what hunger it is to love, what nostalgia of being with whoever is our love. And that applies also to any base love that looks like gold but is filth. And when she who has sinned can understand what is the holy love for the living mercy, whom men did not know how to love, then she can understand better what is your love, Mother. You know that I know how to love. And you know that he said so, that evening of my true birth, on the shores of our serene lake, that Mary knows how to love much. Now this exuberant love of mine, like water that overflows from a tilted basin, like a flowery rosary that streams down a wall, like a flame that finding timber spreads and grows, has poured onto him, and from him love has drawn fresh power. Oh, my power of loving was not able to take his place on the cross. But what I was not able to do for him, to suffer and bleed and die in his place, amid the mockery of all the world, happy, happy, happy to suffer in his place. And I am certain that the thread of my poor life would have been burnt more by the triumphant love than by the infamous scaffold. And from the ashes there would have sprung up the fresh, snow-white flower of the new virgin life, unaware of everything that is not God. All that I was not able to do for him, I can still do for you, Mother, whom I love with all my heart. Rely on me. I, who in the house of Simon the Pharisee knew how to gently caress his holy feet, now with my soul that opens more and more to grace, with greater gentleness, will be able to caress his holy limbs, to dress his wounds, embalming them more with my love, with the balm taken from my heart wrung by love and sorrow, than with the ointment. And death will not spoil that body that has loved so much and is so much loved. Death will flee, because love is stronger. Love is invincible. And I, Mother, with your perfect love, with my total love, will embalm my King of Love. Mary kisses this impassioned woman, who at last has been able to find so much passion, and she yields to her entreaties. Volume 5, number 613. The Resurrection. I see again the joyful and powerful resurrection of Christ. In the kitchen garden, all is silent and glittering with dew. Above it, the sky is becoming a clearer and clearer sapphire shade, after leaving its dark blue hue studded with stars, that through the whole night had watched over the world. Dawn is driving back, from east to west, these still dark zones, like a wave that during the high tide advances more and more, covering the dark beach and replacing the gray-dark shade of the damp sand and of the reef with the blue sea water. A few little stars do not want to die yet, and peep more and more faintly through the wave of the white-greenish light of dawn, a white shaded with gray, like the leaves of the drowsy olive trees that form a crown on that not far away hillock. And then it is wrecked, submerged by the wave of dawn, like land overflowed by water. And there is a star less, and then also another one less, and another one, and another one. The sky loses its herd of stars, and only over there, to the remote east, 3, then 2, then 1 remain to contemplate that daily wonder which is the rising dawn. And then, when a pink thread draws a line on the turquoise silk of the eastern sky, a breath of wind passes over leaves and herbs and says, "Wake up, the day has risen." But it awakes only leaves and herbs, that shiver under their dewy diamonds and rustle gently while the falling drops resound like arpeggios. The birds have not awakened yet among the thick branches of a very tall cypress that seems to dominate like a lord in his kingdom, or in the thick entanglement of a laurel hedge that shelters from the north wind. The guards, weary, cold, sleepy, in various postures, are watching over the sepulchre, the stone of which has been reinforced round its edge, as if it were a buttress, with a thick layer of lime, on the opaque white of which stand out the large rosettes of red wax of the temple seal, impressed with others directly on the fresh lime. The guards must have lit a little fire during the night, because there are ashes and half-burnt firebrands on the ground. And they must have played and eaten, because scattered around there are remains of food and some small, clean bones, which have certainly been used for some game, like our dominoes or our children's games of marbles, which are played on a coarse board traced on a path. Then they become tired, and left things as they are now, and they tried to find more or less comfortable postures to sleep or to keep watch. In the clear sky, where to the east there is now a completely rosy zone, which is spreading out more and more widely, but where, however, there are no sunbeams as yet, a very bright meteor appears, coming from unknown depths, and it descends like a sphere of fire of unsustainable splendor, followed by a glowing trail, which perhaps is nothing but the persistence of its brightness in our retinae. It descends at a very high speed towards the earth, shedding such an intense, phantasmagoric light, frightful in its beauty, that the rosy light of dawn vanishes, outshone by such white incandescence. The guards, astonished, raised their heads, also because, with the light, there comes a mighty, harmonious, solemn rumble that fills the whole of creation with its roar. It comes from heavenly depths. It is the Alleluia, the angelical glory that follows the Spirit of the Christ, which is returning to his glorious flesh. The meteor clashes on the useless closure of the sepulchre, tears it off, throws it on the ground, and it strikes with terror and noise the guards placed as jailers of the Master of the universe, producing with its return to the earth a new earthquake, as it had caused one when the Spirit of the Lord fled from the earth. It enters the dark sepulchre that becomes all bright with its indescribable light, and while it remains suspended in the still air, the Spirit is infused again into the body motionless under the funereal bandages. All this takes place not in a minute, but in the fraction of a minute. So fast have been the appearance, descent, penetration, and the disappearance of the light of God. The "I want" of the divine Spirit to its cold body is noiseless. It is uttered by the essence to the immobile matter, but no word is perceived by the human ear. The flesh receives the order and obeys it with a deep sigh. Nothing else for some minutes. Under the sudarium and the shroud, the glorious body is recomposed in eternal beauty. It awakes from the sleep of death. It comes back from the nothing in which it was. It lives after being dead. The heart certainly awakes and gives its first throb. It propels the remaining frozen blood through the veins, and at once creates the full measure of it in the empty arteries, in the immobile lungs, in the dark brain, and brings back warmth, health, strength, thought. Another moment, and there is a sudden movement under the heavy shroud. It is so sudden that from the moment he certainly moves his folded arms to the moment he appears standing, imposing, splendid in his garment of immaterial matter, supernaturally handsome and majestic, with a gravity that changes and elevates him, and yet leaves him exactly himself. The eye has hardly time to follow the development. And now it admires him. So different from what the mind remembers. Tidied up, without wounds or blood, only blazing with the light that gushes from the 5 wounds and issues from every pore of his skin. When he takes his first step, and in the movement the rays emanating from his hands and feet halo him with beams of light, from his head haloed with a garland, made with the countless little wounds of the crown. But they no longer bleed, but only shine, to the hem of his tunic, when opening his arms that were folded across his chest, he uncovers the zone of very bright luminosity that filters through his tunic, inflaming it like a sun at the height of his heart. Then it is really the light that has taken a body. Not the poor light of the earth, not the poor light of the stars, not the poor light of the sun, but the light of God. All the heavenly brightness that gathers in one being and grants him its inconceivable azure as eyes, its golden fire as hair, its angelic whiteness as garment and complexion, and all that exists, but cannot be described by human words, the supereminent ardor of the most holy Trinity that outshines with its ardent power every fire in paradise, absorbing him in itself to generate him again at each moment of the eternal time. Heart of heaven that attracts and spreads his blood, the countless drops of his incorporeal blood, the blessed souls, the angels, everything there is in the paradise, the love of God, the love for God. All this is the light that is, that forms the risen Christ. When he moves, coming towards the exit, and the eye can see beyond his brightness 2 most beautiful brilliances, but similar to stars compared with the sun, appear to me, one on this side, the other on the other side of the threshold, prostrated in the adoration of their God, who passes by enveloped in his light, beatifying with his smile, and he goes out, leaving the funereal grotto and going back to walk on the earth, that awakes out of joy and shines in its dews, in the hues of herbs and rosaries, in the countless corollas of apple trees that open by a wonder to the early sun that kisses them, and to the eternal sun who proceeds under them. The guards are there, shocked. The corrupt powers of man do not see God, whereas the pure powers of the universe, the flowers, herbs, birds, admire and venerate the mighty one who passes by in a halo of his own light and in an aureola of sunlight. His smile, his eyes that rest on flowers, on dead branches that look up at the clear sky, everything becomes more beautiful, and more soft and shaded than a silky rosary are the millions of petals forming a flowery foam on the head of the conqueror. And brighter are the diamonds of the dew, and of a deeper blue is the sky reflecting his refulgent eyes. And more joyful is the sun that with gladness paints a little cloud blown by a light wind that comes to kiss its king with scents stolen from gardens and with caresses of silky petals. Jesus raises his hand and blesses, and then, while the birds sing more loudly and the wind carries its scents, he disappears from my sight, leaving me in a joy that cancels even the slightest remembrance of sadness and sufferings and hesitancy for tomorrow. Volume 5, number 616. Comment on the Resurrection. Jesus says, "The fervent prayers of Mary have anticipated my resurrection by some time. I had said, 'The Son of Man is about to be killed, but on the third day he will rise from the dead.' I died at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Friday. Whether you count the days by their names, or you count them by their hours, it was not the dawn on Sunday that was to see me rise. With regard to the hours, they were only 38 instead of 72, in which my body had remained lifeless. With regard to the days, it should have been the evening of the third day to say that I had been in the sepulchre 3 days. But Mary anticipated the miracle. As when with her prayers she opened the heavens a few years in advance of the predetermined time to give the world its salvation, so now she obtains some hours in advance to give comfort to her dying heart. And I, at the beginning of dawn on the third day, descended like the sun, and with my brightness I broke the human seals, so useless before the power of a God. With my power I prized open and overthrew the stone watched over in vain. With my apparition, like lightning, I knocked down the utterly useless guards, placed as guardians of a death that was life, that no human power could prevent from being such. By far more powerful than your electric current, my spirit entered like a sword of divine fire to warm the cold remains of my corpse, and in the new Adam the Spirit of God breathed life, saying to itself, 'Live, I want it.' I, who had raised the dead when I was only the Son of Man, the victim appointed to be burdened with the sins of the world, should I not have been able to raise myself, now that I was the Son of God, the first and the last, the eternal living being, he who holds in his hands the keys of life and of death? And my corpse felt life go back to it." Volume 5, number 616. Comment on the Resurrection. Jesus says, "The fervent prayers of Mary have anticipated my resurrection by some time. I had said, 'The Son of Man is about to be killed, but on the third day he will rise from the dead.' I died at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Friday. Whether you count the days by their names, or you count them by their hours, it was not the dawn on Sunday that was to see me rise. With regard to the hours, they were only 38 instead of 72, in which my body had remained lifeless. With regard to the days, it should have been the evening of the third day to say that I had been in the sepulchre 3 days. But Mary anticipated the miracle. As when with her prayers she opened the heavens a few years in advance of the predetermined time to give the world its salvation, so now she obtains some hours in advance to give comfort to her dying heart. And I, at the beginning of dawn on the third day, descended like the sun, and with my brightness I broke the human seals, so useless before the power of a God. With my power I prized open and overthrew the stone watched over in vain. With my apparition, like lightning, I knocked down the utterly useless guards, placed as guardians of a death that was life, that no human power could prevent from being such. By far more powerful than your electric current, my spirit entered like a sword of divine fire to warm the cold remains of my corpse. And in the new atom, the Spirit of God breathed life, saying to itself, "Live, I want it." I, who had raised the dead when I was only the Son of Man, the victim appointed to be burdened with the sins of the world, should I not have been able to raise myself, now that I was the Son of God, the first and the last, the eternal living being, he who holds in his hands the keys of life and of death? And my corpse felt life go back to it.